Welcome to Small Business Big Visibility. Today we have Heather Remick, and she has a really cool experience. She started at a Fortune 500 company when she was 16 years old, has studied psychology, biology, got into the whole world with ClickFunnels, and has brought the whole idea of challenges from the health and fitness world into the online space. You also own a marketing agency where you're actually helping implement all these things. Would you tell us how in the world you got into this space? And what's that story of starting out at 16 and what did that journey look like?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, Jason, for inviting me. When I was in high school, honestly, I was interested in going into marketing and kind of getting into that space and building my acumen in business. And there was a business program at my high school where we could learn just basic accounting and some of the basic fundamentals. And through that, my teacher was also a professor and she had great connections. And I told her about my interest in getting a job in corporate to just kind of get my feet wet. So yeah, she pulled some strings. There were a handful of people that she did this for, and I was able to interview and get hired at a Fortune 500. So I was in competitive marketing when I first started out, and then I moved over to kind of litigation-based marketing because the company I worked for was going through litigation processes. So I was able to do that for the first 3 or 4 years inside of business, and it taught me a lot, but not as much as psychology did when it comes to marketing, because the way people
Gotcha.
think always wins.
So I'm curious, in your background, you've got a plaque. What's the story of that
Yes.
plaque?
Yes. So that was probably, let's see, it was in 2017. I went to Boise. I was in a coaching program under Russell Brunson, and I invested in going in person and learning just the details around webinars and the structure and things like that from him in a small room of about 35, 40 people. So I went, I got the great education. I was able to go to an influencer launch party. And at the end of the party, which was at Boise State University, I was able to go on the field and get a Guinness book with, it ended up being 99 other people for the largest game of bubble soccer. So it was a ton of fun. I was one of the tiniest people there because Russell likes to attract a lot of people in health and fitness, and they tend to be quite large men, and got bounced around a little bit, but had a great time.
Did your team win?
It was fun. No, we did not, but
Oh,
that's,
bummer.
yeah. But it was all good. It was all fun.
So how did you go from studying uh, the business in high school to moving into both psychology and biology? That's not the typical
Yes.
track I would have expected to hear.
It's not. It's not. And honestly, I'm so grateful for the fact that I trusted myself enough to like listen to my gut instinct about the next right move because it was a very varied journey. So I worked for a couple large corporations and I decided to resign. I was in school and I wanted to finish my degree. And initially I was in marketing and business and learning all of that. But in corporate, I enjoyed my time in corporate. I didn't see that as being my forever, like the corporate structure. And I wanted to have a bigger impact. And at the time, honestly, to date myself, online business and online marketing wasn't an option. It was all print ads and commercials and things of that sort. So I took a look at, the options in front of me and decided to go into psychology and biology and look at therapy as an option. So I was actually a counselor in multiple areas, but um, health related, like medical counselor. Yeah, the last position I held was Grady Hospital, which is an inner city hospital in Atlanta. Helped a lot of people. But what it taught me when it comes to marketing, and I love marketing, and I was happy to return back to it. But that time frame, those years that I was a counselor and I worked in that capacity, I should say, I was really appreciative of the fact that I was able to understand the way that people think at a baseline level. I worked with them in really harrowing situations. It was pretty heavy, and it gave me the opportunity to see that we all fall to kind of a level of standard when it comes to being in difficult situations. And I just learned more about the way people thought. So when I went back into marketing again in 2014 and launched my business, I was able to take a lot of that knowledge around the baseline of the way people think and tie that to the knowledge that I had in marketing and bring that together. So a lot of the work that I do is very psychology focused.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally can see how the psychology degree would just play right into it. It seems like promotion, advertising, a great deal of marketing is all psychology applied.
Absolutely, without question.
And
Yes.
what pulled you into the biology side?
Yes. So I knew that I wanted to do something medically related. And honestly, I work with a lot of different businesses right now, but there are business owners that I'll kind of go into something like that, but there are a lot of business owners who like marketers that have a bit of a background in what they're doing,
Mhm.
to have that, kind of connection point and feel like they connect with their audience as well. So I worked a lot with a lot of people around psychological offers, a lot of people in health and fitness, just because I have a knowledge around, the way that body works, and I can take that language and simplify it for, the average people who just want to have, a change, a transformation. It's kind of like Scott,
Oh, Scott
cartoonist.
Adams. Hmm.
Thank you, Scott Adams. Yes, and in actually Tim Ferriss's book, he had done an interview and published it with Scott Adams, and he talks about how when you have two backgrounds that are very unique and different, and you apply them to a field, it's very hard to replicate you because that unique mix is so hard to find. And I found that to be true inside of what I'm doing with not many marketers or marketing agency owners also have a background in medicine, and it really helped to kind of bring it home and help me to attract some amazing people to work with.
Oh yeah, I bet. Now with your marketing agency, who is it that you try to reach and help?
Yes, yes. So I work with businesses that offer services or sell information at whatever capacity. It can be low ticket to, higher ticket, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars for, masterminds and things like that. It just depends on that offer. And honestly, we take it from idea forward. So the vast majority of my audience has an offer in place, and they can be a little bit newer. And if they are a little bit newer, I'll work with them at a consulting and maybe small done for you level, to keep everything kosher when it comes to the money coming in and out, to make sure that they're running a functioning business, and move them towards getting things launched, getting some money in place, and then putting the pieces together around the larger offers. A lot of my clients over time have come in and they generally will see stagnation. It's not necessarily a huge decline in sales, but usually it's more of like a baseline. They're not growing well and they're kind of hustling at the level that they're at. And we'll come in with and kind of design with them a marketing offer that speaks to their audience. It's kind of a wake up in the morning problem that their audience has sitting on their shoulders. And we'll design the marketing around that and then move those pieces forward and develop the offer with them and then develop the ads and, all of the pieces of the puzzle. It's more of a done for you so that they can focus on their business, if they're taking sales calls, sales, and then obviously presenting. And we handle the rest, and it tends to work really well, and they grow very quickly.
Oh, very cool. And how
Yeah.
did you get to that space where that's like how that journey, are there any major points that kind of bounced you to where you are now?
Yeah, well, early on when I got into digital marketing and I started learning about the space, I realized that, and there's nothing wrong with this inherently, but a lot of people were doing small pieces of the puzzle. So what happened is a lot of these business owners weren't gaining success because everything felt a little bit duct taped. The email language didn't match the way that they speak, which is what is online when they're doing, like videos, and
Yeah.
it didn't match their sales pages. So it just didn't feel like them, and it wasn't building a brand. It was just getting check marks kind of checked off the to-do list. And when we're working with clients, we're very concerned about, the way that we're building the brand and the way that we're speaking. And for everyone, I mean, it is the way that you talk is the way that your writing looks like. It's the way that your sales page presents, to the point where we'll listen to the copywriting, we'll listen to podcasts and things like that that they've been on, or videos, to hear the types of words that they're using in the cadence of their language and making sure the copywriting matches that. It's the subtle things that make people distrust a business, especially online when there's nothing tactile. So we try to fill those gaps.
Gotcha. And what are some misconceptions you've noticed in the world that you're like, oh, if I could fix this one thing, I'd go out and do that?
Yeah, in the internet marketing space.
Or in business in general. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. In business in general, well, I would love for people to talk about profits and not just sales, because I think, the back end, the way that the profits look are really where, we tie to good results. A lot of my clients with online businesses, so they don't have the heavy overhead of business, brick and mortar stores, they're doing 60% or higher profit margins. And that's a really nice place to be in. There are a lot of romantic metrics that people will present around what sales look like, but when you look at the back end, they're not necessarily doing that. So I like a lot of honesty. And like I said, I'm a big proponent of just growing brands in general and having that connection point. Still growing a brand that can be sold later, that we could kind of like, if we have a face of the business, that we can start to move them out of it and kind of put their methodology more forward. So I've done that too with clients that wanted a position to sell. So we started kind of adjusting and shifting some things to make the business more attractive for a sale. But initially people really do have to build just a solid, trusted brand and have energy behind it, have a reason why people want to believe in you and trust you, and the consistency behind that. So I don't know, there are things that I think a lot of people try that, but um, yeah, it's in bits and pieces. And the ones that have hit that have a dedicated audience. And no matter what they put out to their audience members that will buy because they trust them and believe in them so much because the brand is so solid.
Hmm, interesting. I love that concept of building that brand so that people will gravitate towards it and trust it. Are there any
Yes.
tips that you'd give on what people need to do? And you mentioned a couple of being consistent in your voice, both
Mhm.
email or video, what have you. But what other tips are there that people should be cognizant of as they're trying to figure this world out?
Yes. I would say one thing I've done with all of my clients is never say anything that isn't true. Like if it's not live, don't say that it's live. You can just leave that out and work around it. But people that are, looking at purchasing from online business, there's always a lot of apprehension. There are always reasons why they feel that they want to see if they're kind of looking for a level of distrust sometimes. So don't give them anything like that. Be really just clear and honest. And you can still be a good salesperson and, inject urgency and scarcity while having that honest approach, but that just builds audiences over time. It's kind of like going to a restaurant. You've gone there 20 times and they were great. And then once the food was horrible, the waiter was rude, and you don't go back again, right? It's that same kind of concept for a lot of people who are shopping online. So we want to make sure that there's that consistency around the way that truth is told more or less for a brand. I would say to Russell says this a lot, Russell Brunson, and I agree with this. Start at the beginning and don't delete the things that you've done in the past. Even start posting about what you're going to do sometimes, before it's getting launched, just to give people an opportunity to be a fan of you from early on. Because when you start where they're at and then they see your growth, they're much more likely to connect with you than when you start, kind of putting yourself out there when you're already bigger than them. People want someone to root for and they want some to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So if we give those two opportunities to an audience early on, they'll tend to be a larger fan base and more consistent with the following over time.
I love it. Now, what do you do in your world to balance the work and the rest of your life? What do you do? How do you make sure that that doesn't bleed over? Because digital marketing, you can work from anywhere and oftentimes might be
Yes.
working from anywhere.
Yes, I do. I do like to travel. So that is oftentimes the case. And I do have, a few daughters. So that, I have responsibilities around that as well. Honestly, when I very first started my business, I looked at what I was going to be good at inside of the business and what I shouldn't be learning because I wasn't going to get good quickly enough, as good as I wanted to present myself. So I hired on team. And like my graphic designer has been with me for 12 years. That was my first hire because I knew that learning graphic design was not going to be beneficial to me. So I would say to take a look at where your strengths are and farm out your weaknesses. And then eventually, as a business owner, those the things that you do should lessen more and more and more, and you could bring more people in. And the people that I've built my agency with over time, honestly, there's so much good knowledge that they brought to the table, so many good ideas. We're better as a whole than as, one person working individually. So just getting, vetting them well and getting good people in is just a massive part of success, truly.
I love it. Now, there may be some people out there who aren't familiar with the concept of the online challenge, and I
Yes.
mentioned that at the introduction, and then we kind of glossed over. Let's revisit that a little bit and kind of both teach people what that is and why it's so successful.
Yes. Okay. So it was around 2015. 2016, give or take. Yeah, that sounds about right. And webinars were still working well, but there was a portion of audiences that weren't converting well with webinars. And I realized what was happening is they needed more of a buy-in, like more momentum and more of a consumption time frame. They needed a little bit of overconsumption, and webinars weren't offering that. It was just such a quick and direct movement towards a sale. And for the larger, higher ticket offers, or the things where we really needed to kind of take the audience on a little bit more of a journey for them to understand, it wasn't converting well. So I, having worked in the health and fitness space, I moved, more or less took the challenge concept from health and fitness and moved it into business. But even for people in health and fitness, our challenges are not incredibly fitness focused. It's not do this workout and eat this food every day for 21 days and get, these results. A lot of where they're struggling is around mindset and momentum and, those types of things, and identity, like them shifting their identity around the person that they want to become and buying into that and kind of making promises to themselves. So when I started playing with that concept, and we've worked with that inside of B2B, B2C, just across the board, most businesses do well with challenges, as long as they're not targeting like CEOs or someone that just doesn't have the time, right? So I started playing with them back then and working with, I remember some of my first launches. One is a very, very successful 8-figure online business coach. I implemented challenges into her business when she was really struggling with webinars, and she's still running that methodology to this day. Another was a PR agency that just needed some support. And what that did is it gave the audience a little bit more grace around learning that multi-day structure. So when people sign up for a challenge, instead of it being 1 hour on one day, give or take, it's generally 4 to 5 days, sometimes 3 days, depending on the structure of it. So you get more time, but there's also more work around, them learning some things, not learning so much that they won't purchase, that it negates the purchase, but just kind of getting involved with a deep, more depth of content, so that they can understand the structure a little bit better around the methodology of the business, and then they move forward. And I've scaled a lot of businesses really quickly via those challenges. It's done really well. Still to this day, it's still working.
And earlier you had said that you help like the information type businesses. So an online challenge isn't necessarily good for someone in the home services or the trades, right? This is more of someone who's doing the transformation for individuals, right?
That's true, but you always want to give an opportunity for people to consume. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Some people, they just need to build trust, and consumption is the way that they do that.
Uh-huh.
So it could be, yeah, if it's not a challenge where they have to sit down for, working with an HVAC or whatever, it's not necessarily just here are my services. It can be the culture of the company, maybe the founding of the company from a family makes sense. It can also be how they represent the community and how engaged they are with the community. But it can also be some of the small things that they do that don't talk over the heads of their audience, but maybe showcasing their knowledge around, this is a problem we had, or this is a situation we often see. This is how you change your filters easily in your HVAC. Little things like that kind of help people move along, but also positions them as being experts without people feeling like they're getting lost in the shuffle and don't know. But every business should have an opportunity for those people that need more information to really dive in and kind of overconsume.
I love that idea of being the content creator so that other people can consume it, regardless of
Mhm.
what industry, right?
Exactly. Yes,
Got it.
exactly. I mean, it's building trust.
And how do you see that the webinar, not the webinar, the challenge
It's
format builds trust? Is it that they're coming in for multiple days, or because you could stack it all into one day, but what's that format look like,
Mhm.
and why does it build trust for people? Maybe diving into that psychology side a little bit.
Yeah, it allows them to know the business owner for longer.
Hmm.
So by the time things end, if it's a 4-day challenge, they've known them for 4 days, and they've been emailing them, unless they signed up right before the challenge, even longer, and they've been giving them good content. So even if they came as a cold lead rather than someone who's been on the list, they know them for longer, and there's been trust built. And like I said, there's an audience that just needed more time than a webinar would allow. So, I mean, for some businesses, we've done that where we've done a longer day, but breaking it up is almost always the better approach. It's just, it gives people the capacity to be able to kind of walk away from an hour session or 45-minute session and consume. And at the end of ours, each day we have Q&A. So it gives them an opportunity to ask questions to the business owner and engage rather than just present to them. So it's more being worked with and less being talked to.
Gotcha. And
Mhm.
and so with this format, earlier I was saying it's not really for the home trades, but you kind of pushed back on that and said, no, there are opportunities where that could be a good scenario, right? So
Absolutely.
so in those kinds of cases, when we're doing a challenge, it sounds like can just be purely educational type of material where you're helping the homeowner or the decision maker become more educated in that industry. Is that kind of the direction that you're suggesting?
Yeah, some of that. I think it's a little bit of a mix of information, but if it's lacking personality and culture, and lacking the building of trust and just teaching them things, they're going to miss the boat. So I would, and I'm sure you, if I know a company works with elderly people and they can talk with them and help them well and I see that inside of their content, I'm more likely to call that company to go to my dad's house and fix their HVAC because I know that they won't talk over their heads or anything like that there may be more comfort around that. So there are little things that they can do when it comes to building trust with people, and sometimes it's those things. Everybody has a quirk, especially when it comes to coming into their home for
Yeah.
home businesses. So yeah, the way that they approach things, the way that I mean, for some people, it's just, that they put covers over their shoes, little things like that.
Mhm.
But overall, it's the knowledge that they have and around the fact that they, are there to service people and to support people. Like I said, HVAC is a good example. They're there to support people, so that they won't get cold and they won't get hot and they have a comfortable, space in their home with their family. And they're also willing to, come in and do diagnostic care and things of that sort, just across the board. And how, like, a piece of content that would be great is how important it is to get those annual checkups, how it saves them money over time, because it's something that's easy to blow off until they realize that it's actually going to save them money and have the machine running longer and better rather than buying a $14,000 machine again. So when they hear that, then they're more likely to contact that company for recurring annual billing. When they do that, that's the first company that they're going to go to if something actually happens. So sometimes those small things can lead into the bigger purchasing points.
Gotcha. So if somebody's watching this and their mind's like "Whoosh, just got blown because I never considered my business could possibly ever do a challenge, and they always thought they had to be referral based and they could never use the online space, and
Mhm.
and you're sitting over here with the solution. How do they find you? How do they follow you? Do you have a challenge that teaches them all these things? What's that look like?
Yes. So I can be found across social media at Heather Remick, Remec. So I go by my name. And my business name is Sales Song with two S's in the middle, .co. So that's where my website is. And like I said, I work with local and online service-based businesses and businesses that sell information. It's businesses that need words in order to make sales. So that's in essence what we do. And everything is very customized. That's something that I've believed in from really early on, and we still do. So it is absolutely customized based on what that business needs at that moment in time to bring in sales and to work with good people. Like business owners want to work with a good, solid personality of person. And the way that you speak to them inside of your marketing does attract a higher quality audience as well.
I love it. So how did you decide to name it Sales Song?
Yes. So sales is in essence what we do in the end, right? But the song portion of it is I believe so strongly in a voice being part of the brand and just really kind of building that brand around voice. So that's the reason that I leaned into song. It's a little bit of a kind of a grassroots approach, but that's what it is so that each business has a voice. It shouldn't just be an exchange of services. That's so easy to for someone to go somewhere else and choose. Instead, you want to build, you know, a brand to where people follow them and want to work with them. Like they believe in them enough to where they'd rather pay an extra $50 to work with this company because they like the way that they run business, they like their approach, that type of thing.
Gotcha. And so I'm assuming then you help anyone who hasn't established their brand to really figure out some of those key critical components as a part of onboarding and working with them.
Absolutely, yes. So when we work with our businesses, honestly, oftentimes for years, and the initial portion of it pretty much always starts with marketing to get sales and kind of get that engine revving. And then after that, we take a look at the business. If there's anything that we could do to help the profit margins. Onboarding is always underrated. If we always touch on onboarding for our clients, if they get a client, you want to retain them as much as possible. When you have a good onboarding process, because it's that first touch point around when somebody first invests with you and they hope you're going to do a good job, they just gave you a bunch of money. When that onboarding is good, you can increase your retention or resales rate by up to 70%. So we're looking at all the minuscule little pieces of businesses in order to make sure that they're really retaining the clients they have and keeping that profit in place while still getting good quality clients in.
I love it. So really, you get them in the door here, and then you just teach them, here's how you be more profitable. Here's how you be more profitable. Who wouldn't want to work with someone for years that shows them how to be more profitable?
Yes, yeah, and we stay within our wheelhouse. But I mean, I've had several conversations with clients like, okay, I'm not an accountant, but the accountant you've had may not be the one you need
Hmm.
next year. So look for somebody that's good with business and things of that sort. So yes, I mean, we try to make sure that they're growing strong and good and just have a really secure business. I want the businesses that I work with to be, in business for as long as they want to, and just to have something really solid. And those moves early on can dictate what that looks like later.
Love it. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for taking the time to jump on the podcast and share all these tips and strategies with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me again. I appreciate it.